What's going on, Facebook, and greetings from the first episode of Texans Talking Football. We're coming to you live from our dirty, grungy basements because we've got a shoestring
and the
budget here,
kitchen, and the kitchen because Jason has it during dinner time.
How's it going, everybody? I'm SAJ. To that guy right there, that's BD, and right below me is the coach.
Welcome
to our first episode. So, lots of podcasts out there, right? Lots of people talking about football. What makes us different? What sets us apart? Guys, we're going to look at football from a Texas perspective. And what that means is that we're going to focus on all things Texas. We all know that Texas is the home of football, and that starts at the very youngest levels. Pop Warner goes all the way up through college and the pros. We're going to be focusing on a little bit of everything here. We're going to talk about some of the pro football stuff, right? We're going to talk about some of the spring league football stuff. We're also going to be talking about some of the powerhouse colleges that are here in Texas. We're also going to talk about some of the powerhouse high school teams, right? Because every little bit of Texas football has an influence on football around the nation. So, without further ado, let's go around the horn and let's start talking about ourselves and our football experiences and who our teams are. Coach, why don't you take us into this?
All right. So, my name is Tom Walker. So thank you, Jason, for the invite to do this. I've been around football since we moved down here from Indiana in '81. I'm a Cowboys fan, which means I'm a glutton for punishment. I am a Judson Rocket, and if you remember the Rockets, you know that a lot of success in the '80s. I've coached youth football successfully in the type of organizations. I've got two older boys that played for football for Texas Luther. One's graduated now. He's he's teaching chemistry, looking to coach at some point. And I've got a young one that's going to be a freshman next year. We're going to start the whole cycle over. So it's always good to talk football and have fun with it. One thing that I've been doing for about 7 years now is we do a Facebook Live. Me and a buddy of mine named Hope, where we at Rutledge Stadium we actually do our own little sort of podcast where we do a pregame, halftime, and a postgame show. And I also keep the clock at all of the varsity games at Rutledge Stadium. So it's football all the time. Starting towards the end of July. Through the Super Bowl here at the Walker household, and that's just how we spend our time together.
Awesome. BD, why don't you kick us off next?
What's up, everybody? I'm BD. I don't have near as much experience as Coach does, but I'm a Cowboys fan. I can second the glutton for punishment. It's been a rough, 26 years or whatever, but you know what? It's our year next year. You know what? It's our year. At some point, it'll be our year. I'm an Aggie for college football. Went to Texas A&M. We're welcoming the to UT in Oklahoma into the good conference of college football in a couple of years. So, finally UT won't be too scared to play us anymore.
Nice.
I went to Madison High School. So high school football, I was a Mavericks fan for San Antonio. My youngest son, he's about to go to Steele High School. He doesn't play football though; he plays basketball. But I've been a football fan my entire life, and I just love watching it. I love talking about it, and I can't get enough of it.
Excellent. So I, of course, am Jason Leroy. Go by SAJ. For those that know me in the XFL world, and that's going to be important. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But not originally from here. I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but I did grow up here. Went to Ed White Middle School on the Northeast Side, went to Roosevelt High School, and graduated from there. So definitely huge rivals with these two gentlemen here with me. Spent a lot of time being just infatuated with football, right? When I was younger, trying to find something to stay connected with home, and I was obsessed with football. So, of course, the Packers became my team. And I was very used to losing, right? We were not good in the 80s. We were pretty bad. Kind of like the Cowboys now.
And this year, too, for you guys.
Well, and yeah, thanks to Magic Mushroom, old Rodgers. But we'll talk about that later. But, again, around football most of my life, right? I was at Roosevelt. I graduated right before Roosevelt became a powerhouse for the second time, where they split the state championship with the Judson Rockets, although Roosevelt did actually win the state championship. Judson did not. And I don't care what you say, and I'll mute you right now. Okay. But Roosevelt was a powerhouse in the 70s. And so there was a lot of football tradition there, even in the 90s when I graduated. Got out of school, right? Started going to college. UTSA became my school. That was my adopted alma mater. They didn't have a team back in those days, but as soon as they got one, that became my college school. And then, of course, University of Wisconsin. But we're not here to talk about University of Wisconsin. We're here to talk about Texas teams. So these gentlemen and I have had lots of conversations about football, lots of battles about whose team is best. Think we still have not solved that debate, especially with both of our teams being horrible this last year. But that's kind of what prompted this whole show. What's about now? None of our teams made the playoffs. None of our teams made it in the Super Bowl. So what do we do with ourselves, right? We're going to talk about football, right? XFL just kicked off. The USFL is getting ready to start. And then after that, we're going to have arena football. And then after that, it's preseason for football. So there's going to be tons of opportunities to talk about football here. And what we want to do is just kind of introduce ourselves and start getting things kind of going, right? So I know Brian was with me at the XFL games. Tom, did you catch any of the games this weekend by any chance?
I've been fighting bronchitis and I was asleep. I do know that the Brahmas came up a little short, but I did not see the game.
They certainly did. So let's talk about that a little bit. Brian, you were at the game. First of all, I'm sure most of the people that are watching this or that are going to watch this are pretty familiar with the XFL and the XFL teams that are there. But just for the sake of argument, let's talk about the 3 of the 8 Texas teams that are here in Texas, right? We have the San Antonio Brahmas, we have the Arlington Renegades, and we have the Houston Roughnecks. Arlington and Houston are carryovers from XFL 2022. So they're not new to the game. We are, but we're not new to semi-pro football. In this case, let's just call it pro football, right? We had the Talons we had the Commanders back in 2019. Before that, we've had teams like the Talons. We have the Gunslingers in the arena. We've had the Gunslingers professionally, right? We've had
the Toros, the Roses, the Riders.
Yep.
Yes.
We've had a lot of teams in San Antonio.
Mm-hmm. And so far, unfortunately, none of them have really stuck because the leagues that they've been in have fallen apart. Hopefully this is different, right? The financing of the XFL is a lot better. They're a lot more transparent with where their money is and where the money's going. And with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Danny Garcia at the helm, we've got some pretty smart business people that are going to be managing the dollars and cents. So I don't see this going away anytime soon. Now that that's been talked about, let's talk about what happened this weekend. So Brian and I have the distinct honor of being instrumental in helping build the frenemy ship, if you will, with St. Louis and the St. Louis Battle Chickens, as we like to call them.
What?
That game did not turn out exactly the way that we expected. Brian, why don't you give us a breakdown of what happened?
You know, it was a pretty slow defensive game for most of the way through. You know, I was real impressed with the way our defense was showing up, and you know, hey, the Battle Chickens too. You know, it was a hard fought battle. You know, we had a few field goals, had a missed field goal too, but you We had that touchdown in the fourth quarter, missed the extra point, and then we stopped them again, came back, kicked another field goal, and we were up pretty comfortably, 12 points at that point. But XFL rules, they Chickens came down, scored a touchdown, well, 3-point conversion, which those of you who are not familiar with XFL rules, there's no extra points in XFL. You go for it from the 1 point from the 2-yard line, for 2 points from the 5, or from 3 points from the 10. They went for it from the 10. They got it. They onside kicked, which, well, the XFL version of onside kick. Fourth quarter, if you are tied or losing, you can, in lieu of an onside kick, you can go for a 4th and 15 from where you would kick off at. And they got it, and they went down, scored another touchdown, and we lost the game. So it was a rough ending, but it was a great game. I mean, the crowd was fantastic. They were into it, some a little too much when the offense was on the field, but I couldn't ask for anything better from our city's first XFL game. We definitely showed the league and everybody who's watching, what we're about, and that we're passionate about our team, and we're passionate about football.
Yep. So let's break down some of that game. I'm looking at some stats here. One thing that I found very interesting, Brian and I were at the game. One of the things that we complained about was that it seemed like our game plan was essentially rush, 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 pass, rush, 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 pass. But here's the thing. If you break down the plays, it was 51 pass plays, 53 rush plays. So sometimes your eyes can be deceiving. Sometimes it seems like you see one thing, but that's not actually what's happening. That's extremely important to talk about because, again, we thought we had this game in the bag. And then defense changed. Something happened. St. Louis was able to march down the field, score that touchdown. One thing to mention that's different here in the XFL than it is in the NFL is that a lot of the college rules are still involved in the XFL. So it went to the end zone for St. Louis. It was 1 foot in, right? Everybody's cheering. Everybody's happy because, hey, 1 foot in. Didn't establish control. Doesn't count. Well, in the XFL, it does, right? 1 foot's all it takes.
So I'm not a fan of that. I think the 1 foot rule should stay in college. That once you're kind of in professional league, you should be able to get 2 feet down.
Brian, I tend to agree with you. I did have the opportunity to watch the Arlington game the day before, and that same play came up on the sideline, and I thought, well, he's out. They called the 1. But then I noticed something a little bit different, and from running the clock, it's just things I see. These games are being – when you have network television, we see it when Milton and I do the games at the Alamo Dome. The Army All-American game, Milton and I call it every year. There's a time block. They do not want to go into whatever is being shown after the game, which is golf or whatever it is. If you notice the clock as well, we're used to out of bounds, the clock stops. Incomplete pass, the clock stops. That wasn't happening. They were playing through it up until the 2-minute mark. Mm-hmm. And the reason they're doing it, and the reason they went to that 1 foot is because it makes it easier. It's more offensive. Because what the XFL is looking for, they want points. And the other thing that they talked about in that Arlington game is they only started 5 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. When you've got a whole group of guys that you bring together, and you haven't had a scrimmage, you haven't had anything. That game Sunday was essentially a scrimmage. And so there's a lot to be taken from. I think Jason, you actually had a great point. It's 53-51. That's actually pretty consistent. And that's a team that was trying to find their way, and will use that information going into the next game. But when you've got the 1 foot rule and you've got the clock situation, that is just the XFL talking to the network, and the network saying we got to be done in this slot. And so they're just going to have it done. They do not want to go into. They don't want to put. NFL doesn't care. 60 minutes starts at 6:45. Who cares? Right? I mean,
yep.
That's the way it is.
Yep. So I think what we take away from that game on Sunday for the Brahmas is that, first and foremost, we have a formidable rushing team, right?
Oh, definitely.
If you look at the rushing yardage, Kalen Ballage ran 24 times for 84 yards, averaged 3.5 yards per carry, right?
Well, that boy can rumble too.
Yes. And then you look at Patrick, number 10. He ran – I'm sorry, it's not his number. He ran 10 times for 38 yards. So he got 3.8 yards per carry, right? And then Cone had 4 carries for 10 yards. So we have opportunities there to open up that rushing game. What we need to figure out as a team is how to solidify that offensive line so that we can get better opportunities for better runs, but then also we're not pressuring our quarterback. Let's go back and look at the pass attempts, right? 25 receptions total by the team. Tolliver had the best. He had 3 receptions for 49 yards total, 16.3 yards average. Travis Johnson had 1 for 17, right? We have some weapons out there. We have some people that can actually, move with the ball and get open. But a lot of those passes, they were all short yardage, 5, 10. I think the biggest one is the 17-yard pass to Johnson. And
he had 3 drops too.
Yeah.
And that three bad drops that really hurt us.
Mm-hmm. But we never had the opportunity to go deep, right?
No time.
We didn't have the time for it. So total, we had 207 yards passing offense to 133 yards ground offense. Pretty respectable. And especially if you look at St. Louis, they had 190 yards in the air while only 68 on the ground. They still got away with the win, right? So we need to make sure we shore up that offensive line so we get better passing opportunities, and that we make sure that our defense stays strong for the entire game. They can't just back out at the very end. So
they played the old saying, prevent defense only prevents you from winning.
Talking to Vipers versus Arlington Renegades, right? What'd you think of that game?
I actually thought it was a good game. I thought I am a Texas fan, and so Bob Stoops is not a guy that I normally cheer for, but Arlington's got – well, they have Martavius Bryant, which freaked me out, from the Steelers. The Packers need a receiver, just saying.
Hey.
But you look at their team as in total, the defense – to take 2 pick six back to essentially win that game. Their defense is on point. Offense, 5 weeks is not a lot of time to get your continuity down and stuff. And Jason, you talk about underneath stuff. If we're gonna throw underneath stuff, that's because we're not quite ready to let the ball air out. If you and I went in the backyard and I threw it deep, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be complete because I'm either going to underthrow or overthrow you. We get some more time, I'm going to drop it right there, and that's probably what's going on with what happened Sunday.
That's a good take on it. So looking at the numbers, right? Because ultimately everybody talks about the numbers, analytics, the stats. Renegades went 19 to 25 for 172 yards, averaging about 6.9 yards per throw, but no touchdowns. That's kind of key to highlight there. Like Coach said, all the points came from the defense. They did cough up one interception, but still, I mean, those are pretty decent yards.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about their rushing. 31 attempts for 83 yards. Their longest rush attempt was 11 yards.
Yeah.
They're averaging, right around somewhere between 2.5 and 3 yards per rush.
Mm-hmm.
Not horrible, right? But with those kind of numbers on offense, they should have put something on the board. So,
you would think the quarterback for the Renegades is a kid out of Texas A&M Commerce, Perez, and it was fun rooting for him. I've got a young man that played with my older son, Dominic Ramsey, played at A&M Commerce. Josh did a camp up there, small school field, left right outside Arlington, and heading towards Texarkana. They're actually moving up. I believe they're moving to D1. They've been D2, and I believe they're moving up. So he's a quality quarterback. I'm sure he'll figure it out. And, their offensive woes, but it's good. It's good when you can bide time on offense trying to figure it out, and your defense says, we got you, and they win the game for you.
So Perez for the Vipers actually went 22 for 36, 249 yards, like we talked about. But he threw 3 touchdowns. But then again, he gave up 2 picks. Right. And Perez has been around for a while. I remember him being in the AAF with was it San Diego? I'd have to go back and look, but I know he's with one of the AAF teams there.
Mm-hmm.
When he came back to XFL 2.0 in 22, he was actually having a pretty good career. And so there's potential there. Vegas has potential to have a dangerous team if they can just figure it out. And I mean, we saw that surge at the end. So they could potentially be, a threat. Be interesting to watch and see what they do. Now, let's talk about the dreaded team from the East, the Houston Roughnecks. And
they look good.
I like the uniform. The little nod to the Oilers, pretty cool.
Yeah. Yep. The helmets are one of those helmets that you're either going to love or you're absolutely going to hate, right? It's the Texas flag. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. I've heard it both sides. I've never heard anybody say, it's okay, or it's just all right. It's either I love that helmet or absolutely despise it.
It's better than the Texans helmet. I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, just throwing it out there.
Anything's better than the Texans helmet. Yep.
I mean, you know what? The Rough Riders are better than the Texans, so you know what, it matches.
Rock on. Dallas still owns Texas. I'm just saying. Too soon.
Speaking of owning things, Houston owned Orlando 33-12. It wasn't even much.
It didn't even feel like it was that close, too. That game was just a beatdown.
Yep. The only quarter where it seemed interesting was the third quarter, where nobody scored anything. Otherwise, it was all Houston all the time. So, Paxton Lynch went for 15 to 21, 136 yards. And then they threw in Dormady, who went 12 for 18, 142. Right? Now, what's interesting is Lynch threw 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Dormady threw 1 touchdown, 2 picks. And so it looks like what's his name over there? Why can I not remember the coach? Wade Phillips. There you go. It seems like Phillips is trying to do a 2 quarterback attack. right? That way he mixes it up. And
it's kind of what we did when he coached Dallas. Oh, sorry.
Did he have 2 quarterbacks when he coached Dallas?
Yeah, like 6 or 7. I'm just saying.
No. I mean, good quarterbacks. I'm just
Well,
saying.
He had Romo.
So back to my point.
He caught it.
Hey, you know what? We're talking about XFL, but if Romo had the defense that Dak has with the Cowboys, Romo would have won some Super Bowls.
There's the next show.
And we can talk about that. We can definitely let's save that. We'll go into that in the next segment. But
Dak doesn't want to watch it. I'm just saying.
Well, he can't see it because he's looking over here.
Yeah.
Oh. So on to rushing, right? I'm sorry. That was the Guardians with Paxton Lynch and Dormady. I read that completely wrong. Let's go with Houston, and we're just gonna have to correct that whole segment here. So where are my numbers? Phillips goes with 1 quarterback, and that's Brandon Silvers, 26 of 42, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His longest pass is 46 yards. So Silvers has experience. He's not going to be afraid to air it out. Rushing, they did 20 carries, 81 yards. Longest was 27 from Borgie, I guess. And it's just that's a well-balanced team, man. That they're going to be dangerous. Orlando does the 2 QB attack. And there's some benefit in that, right? But from what we've seen, and you guys watched the Houston game, at least a little bit of it, the 3 Texas teams, who do you think has the best chance in week 2 to continue their dominance of the XFL?
I don't know. As much as I don't like Stoops, I think Arlington has a shot.
Okay.
I like Arlington.
Okay. BD, what do you think?
Man, Houston just looked good. They looked like they're the best team in the XFL last week. So until someone knocks them off, I'm gonna go for them.
So one thing
that's a safe pick. It's either the Guardians are decent and Houston took it to them, or the Guardians are everybody's homecoming team, and everybody's going.
Hopefully for us, that's the case.
The 2 ways to look at it.
We need a get right game. So
yeah. We're playing the Guardians this weekend.
I like homecoming.
Yeah, I've got a feeling it's going to be the Brahmas homecoming game. I think when you talk to the players, when you talk to some of the coaching staff, and just that general feel, Ward is not happy. Ward was not content with the results, and he very much is a soft-spoken, doesn't get too animated kind of coach. But when you've done wrong, right?
Yep.
And so I'm sure the whole team is paying for it this week. And I'm sure that there were probably a lot of wind sprints people had to run. And I'm sure there was more than a little bit of vomit left on the field. But that's the price you pay, right? When your coach asks you to get out there and win and you don't, it isn't always the coach's game plan. Coach, you can speak to that. Sometimes it's the player's efforts. It's the player's heart. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that this tune-up game for the Brahmas is going to set the stage for their dominance in their division. And here's the reason why. We knew St. Louis was going to be tough going into that game, right? We knew we were going to have problems with them, and we handled them pretty consistently. Right? We had them pretty much on the ropes all the way through the third quarter. And once we scored that touchdown in the late in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter, pretty much had that sealed. If we would have just stayed on the gas and kept our defense strong, we would have shut them down. So I think that's what's going to happen, is that we're going to find that fine tune in Orlando. We're going to take it to Orlando. We're going to take our frustrations out on them. We're going to keep that energy going into the third game. And then when we come back home to play Arlington at like a 9 p.m. game, yeah, it's going to be brutal. But I think that's what we're going to see.
Yeah, you won't tailgate at 9 o'clock in the morning that day.
9 o'clock in the morning? No, sir. It's 9 p.m.
I know. You're not going to get started at 9.
Bet.
I mean, bet. Bet. But that I think is how it's going to be. I think right. I think they're going to win their next game, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as they think it's going to be. And I think Dallas will probably. Well, I'm sorry, Arlington. Right. Let's insult the folks up north. But I think they're going to stumble. Right. And I think Arlington's going to show their true colors. And I think we're going to find out that they're not necessarily as strong as what everybody is thinking that they're going to be. So my picks for next week, I think we're going to take it to Orlando. Oh, yeah, no, Arlington's definitely going to lose because they're playing the Roughnecks. So they're going to lose that game. Okay. And then we're going to see just how tough the Roughnecks really are. And then the next week, then we've got Arlington at Orlando, right? But we've got Houston at San Antonio. San Antonio at Houston.
Yeah.
That is where you're going to see what the Brahmas truly can do and what the Roughnecks can truly do. So I really think next week is going to be our rough them up game. Get us ready, get us hungry, get us fired up for Houston. And then Sunday, March 5th, we're going to find out. We're going to find out what's going on. So that being the case, let's talk about you guys' favorite subject, the Dallas Cowboys. What's going on in Dallas? What happened this year, guys?
Well, we made the playoffs, even though you said earlier we didn't. And we ended Tom Brady's career. Of course, then we ended other things the next week, but,
Yes.
That's, it is what it is. The Cowboys, if you don't know anything about the NFL, the funny season started with they can start negotiating with players. They can put the tag on them. They can do certain things. If you kind of paid attention around the league, Daniel Jones and the Giants are at an impasse. Okay. And so Daniel Jones, that may be something to watch. I am predicting here and now that the Dallas Cowboys will have a wide receiver picked up from the Arizona Cardinals with the last name of
Hopkins,
rather.
Watkins is the one that likes massages.
You're right. Yeah, Hopkins.
That's my son.
And I think Schultz is gone. I think Zeke is gone. I think Pollard will be tagged. I think Tyrone Smith will be gone. And I think Van Der Esch gets signed, and we figure out Diggs. And we do all of that by restructuring Dak, which means he's got to be on the books and he's got to be our quarterback a little bit longer than what I might be happy with. But the best thing that the Dallas Cowboys did was they picked up an offensive coordinator, and we sent Wonder Boy to San Diego. And now we got Schottenheimer, who is going to run the ball on third down as opposed to letting Dak just throw a pick on third down. I'm not a Dak hater. You're going to hear me criticize Dak. I don't hate Dak. Dak's a better quarterback. We're a better football team when Dak runs. And my wife will attest to that. My beautiful wife is a huge Dak Prescott fan. And I get yelled at quite a bit. However, I'm not going to let Dak sit back if I'm the coach and let us throw an interception after interception. In the third round of this draft, I am also going to predict the Dallas Cowboys pick up a quarterback, and we put a little bit of pressure because Cooper Rush is going to be gone. We put a little bit more pressure on Dak. Getting rid of Wonder Boy, he's not as comfortable as he was. Schottenheimer will run the ball more, and I'm hoping in the draft we can find my man out of Texas and pick him up and let him run us back. That's my Dallas Cowboy prediction.
Okay.
So, Coach, one thing, I think you may be right about them getting rid of Zeke. I don't think they should, because Zeke and Pollard running together was a fantastic complementary running game. You know, it was the old school Marion Barber, Julius Jones. You know, you got the quick guy to tire the defense out, and you got the power guy to run it into them.
I agree with that. But
Zeke said he'd be willing to stay and he'd be willing to take a pay cut.
That's the biggest bet. Well, how big is that pay cut? That's what's going to determine on it.
Yeah.
If Zeke can get his ego out of the way and say, "Look, I've already pillaged the Cowboys for all the money that he had," right? You know, and go, "Hey, look, I'll play for $2 million a year." Well, yeah, that's a no-brainer. But if Zeke comes back and says, "Well, I want to be around the 6, 7," we can go in the draft and get 2 of them for less than half of that. And I
think both of them together, man. That was just such a good run game.
It was. Now, don't forget that when Pollard broke his leg, there's going to be some rehab and there's going to be some indecision. It's going to be like Dak. That's why they're going to franchise tag him, because if nothing more, they're going to rehab him back in. Pollard's a great running back.
I definitely agree that they're going to franchise Pollard.
Yeah, have to, because we're $7 million over the cap right now. We've got some stuff we've got to do, and I think I've got a good friend of mine, Chris Masters, who is way more into this salary cap thing. And when we talk, that's what we talk about. And of course, he's of the opinion to try to keep everybody, but it just doesn't work out the numbers. So we'll see what the cap number is. I will tell you
they came out with a couple years ago. A couple weeks ago, that they were raising the cap. It was higher than what was going to be expected. So
which is good, because that'll help us keep Diggs.
Yeah.
Brown coming back, that'll be a good thing. The defense, I'm all in on. If you find a big, rough, mean interior defensive lineman who's just as good as run stopping as he is as a pass rusher, I think you make him your first pick in the draft. And that way, because it's going to take some time for Dak to figure it out without Wonder Boy. And so if they can, kind of do what we've done the last couple of years, hey, we're going to hold them back, maybe even score some points on defense. Go ahead and figure it out, Dak. And Dak's a good enough quarterback where, you give him some weapons, and that's the biggest thing about his contract. Go if you want to get paid, that's great, but play up to your contract. Yeah. And so put some points on the board.
Let's talk about that contract.
No,
it's got base salary $31 million with a $13.2 million signing bonus.
You know what it is next year? The following year?
Well, it's
brutal. That's what it is.
51.
Let's look at 50 or 24. See if this is right. These numbers can't be right. Why is it not showing?
That's why they're going to restructure it. They did this with.
How much did you say it was?
I thought it was 51.
52.1 million.
So, but they do that. They do that so they can restructure it in the future. So it's almost like free money. So a lot when they restructure, they can give them a lot of that in a signing bonus.
Yep.
So it brings that cap number down, right? Brings the cap number down, and now you can bring the salary cap number down, which is the biggest part. So you can fit people in. It's not like the NBA where if you don't know anything about the salary cap, the NBA's got open salary cap. You can go get whoever you want, but after a certain number, I don't know what that is, but after a certain number, you have to pay a penalty to the league, and that money gets dispersed throughout the league. to the teams, right? So if the Lakers or, all these teams that they want to have the stars, okay, well, pay the luxury tax. Well, that's why the Lakers are in the hole they're at, because they listen to LeBron James, and they've got all their money wrapped up in a couple players, and so they can't. And their owners like, I'm not paying more of the luxury tax. Well, in the NFL, there is no luxury tax. The only thing you can do is you can hide money for the following year. In other words, if the cap number is $200 million and you only spend $190, then you've got $10 million the following year. So if it goes up to 206, you actually have 216. So that's why some of they kind of snowbird some money a little bit. Cowboys, Stephen Jones, they've been doing it for a while. They're still knowing they're going to be over the salary cap, so they can try to fix players in. But Dak's going to get restructured for that reason. He's going to be a rich man on sleeping on the Sertas and sleep numbers and everything else, but he's going to get his money.
Yep. So where are you guys falling in regards to McCarthy? You guys keeping him? You walking? What are we doing with McCarthy?
I like him.
Brian, I saw you shaking your head.
I wish we would have made a run at Peyton. But hey, you know what? I've told you many times though, Jason. McCarthy's better than Garrett. So,
well, I mean that's a given. But
yeah.
If you had the ability to pick any coach right now, who do you think would be the best coach for the Dallas Cowboys and the staff that they have right now? Who would be the best choice to make them the most successful?
I don't know.
Well, Sean Payton would have been, but he wasn't worth giving up the first round pick to the Saints.
Yeah.
That's a one. I like Eric Bieniemy from the Chiefs.
Okay.
But
now of the Commanders.
That's true.
Which absolutely shocked me.
Yeah.
When he signed
now,
OC for the Commanders.
Now it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I always liked him. We'll see what he does without Mahomes, but
without Mahomes and without Reed, and I think that's kind of a conscious decision on his part, and that might be why he's been getting looked over head coaching jobs the last few years because, well, you got Mahomes, you got Reed, so of course you're going to look good. He's like, all right.
The one coach I'll tell you I would not want for the Dallas Cowboys is Sirianni out of the Eagles. I can't stand the guy. I can't stand him. I don't like his attitude. Don't like the cockiness. I don't like, I get it. You're fired up. I've been there. I get it. But there's a way you handle yourself on that football field that he doesn't do it. And he inspires his guys, and I get it. And he's probably good with that filthy city. But he's the one guy I do not want for the Dallas Cowboys.
Now, Coach, what it was probably just internet rumors and there wasn't much to it, but what were you thinking when they were talking about maybe Kingsbury coming over to OC?
I've been all right with that. My wife went to New Braunfels. His mother was her something teacher, history maybe. Hold on. What was that? Government teacher. Thanks, honey.
Government.
So there's a little history there. Cliff, as an OC, I think Cliff is great. I don't know how good he was. Of course, that little Oklahoma quarterback he had. He's it is what it is. He just thinks he's all world and he's hard to work with. So I think Cliff's going to be all right. Cliff, being the OC, I don't know if he fixes Dak because he likes to do what Wonder Boy does. So I think going with Schottenheimer, who's going to be a run-first guy, is going to help Dak be a better quarterback. I think we got the right OC.
Don't they say that every year though? Every year they come and be like, "We're going to run the ball more. We're going to make a commitment to running." Every single year
they do. And when they've done it,
and when they do,
they got to make Dak. The problem is you got to make Dak part of that. So if you remember all the good games that Dak has had one or two runs where he's tucked it and taken off. Tampa game, he had a great game because he ran the ball. We go into the San Francisco game, both of them, and we're going to sling the rock. And he's not a slinger. And if you watched any of the stuff that was on Facebook and where the NFL guys were breaking it down, his reads were all out of whack because he's in such a hurry, because he's such a numbers guy. He wants to hit it instead of taking the easy one. And with Dak, you get the perfect ball. The ball's dropped exactly where it needs to be, and then the next three is it's in the guy in his shoelaces. It's overthrown and hitting the cheerleader right behind the bench, and then he's just throwing it deep and nobody's there. And so that's the consistency I think Schottenheimer helped with.
I love Dak as a leader of the team. He's a great guy. I mean, he got the Man of the Year award and absolutely warranted. I mean, he's a great leader. It's just
my wife just laughed in the other room and said, "I like him. You think Dak's a good boy?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay."
It's just like you said, man. He thinks he can do more than what his skill level allows him to do.
Yes.
He's not the thrower that Romo was. Romo had his issues and would make.
Romo's not the thrower Romo was. Okay.
Look, here's the thing about Tony Romo. All right, and I know we're getting close to the end here, but here's the thing about Tony Romo. Okay, I didn't go into every game with Tony hoping that he wouldn't screw up. I go into every game, and David, Brian, you help me with this. You go in every game every week as a Cowboy fan, and you're hoping what? The Dak doesn't screw it up, right?
Yep, absolutely.
There's a hope. I don't need a hope factor. When Troy Aikman was there wasn't a hope. There was a hope with Danny White because there's two types of quarterbacks with the Cowboys. You got the Danny White quarterback and Roger Staubach quarterback. Troy was a Roger. Meredith was a Roger. Dak is definitely Danny White, and Romo would be Roger, then Danny. Roger with Danny. Roger with Danny. But it was consistent. And towards the end of his career, especially the game where we got cheated in Green Bay.
Oh my God.
He caught it.
Mm-hmm. He caught it, absolutely.
Not a catch.
And it took an Oklahoma running back to fumble to really put us in a position to lose that game. But in that game, Romo was brilliant. He really was.
Yeah.
And I've seen Romo break a rib in San Francisco, come on the field, and get us a win. I've seen that. I haven't seen that from Dak. I don't see that Dak. I just see the deer in the headlights, the mouth's open, and he's walking off the field after a pick, looking at the screen like it's going to help him. Well, probably more. He doesn't want to look up at the crowd and see everybody that wants to throw an empty bottle of Jack Daniels at him.
Or to, if we're going to bring it back to like kind of XFL talk, a bunch of freaking lemons,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We kind of skipped over, that game, but that DC Guardians was the best thing to happen at XFL last week. Free the snake, and I'm all for it. So that was awesome. But
yes, that DC Seattle game turned out to be probably one of the best games weekend. Right, because it was a constant battle back and forth the whole time.
Oh yeah,
and you had the lemons going on too, right? And so it turns out that, and this is speculation because I haven't actually, I don't have a source to quote this from, but supposedly the reason why they stopped the snake was the DC Board of Health said too much interaction with each other, right? Saliva from drinking the beer and whatever. Bacteria transmittal, it would have been like a hotbed for communicable diseases such as COVID and whatever, and people are still scared of that and that whole thing going on. So they said no beer snake. Now what I'm trying to figure out is, where did the fans get the lemons from?
That's exactly what I want to know, and we should demand that question be answered.
Yes.
Like there was 50 to 100 lemons that were on the field. Where did they come from?
They didn't get them. There's no way they could have gotten those from the concession stand.
Absolutely not.
Where did they come from? How did you smuggle a lemon in? Where would you put never mind, I don't want to know. It's a family show.
Did everyone smuggle their own lemons? Were there designated lemon smugglers? We got lemon mules over in DC. What's going on here?
Exactly.
If you know your Cowboys,
you know what? Conspiracy theory time. It was planned. It
might have been. Let me go back in history because if you know anything about the Cowboys Hail Mary play, where Roger Staubach hit Drew Pearson on the long throw to actually go to the Super Bowl against Minnesota, if you watch that play, if you watch that play live, it looks like a flag was thrown in front of Drew when he gained control and walked into the end zone. It wasn't. That was not a flag. That was an orange. And the reason it was an orange because the Super Bowl was played where? In the Orange Bowl in Miami against the Colts.
Okay.
Right? So the fans were given oranges. And so when he caught that ball, a fan got excited and tried to throw an orange at Drew Pearson. And if you watch that play again, the ball it screams by. If you go to Frisco, and I suggest as a Cowboy fan you do, if you go to Frisco and you take the tour, there's a staircase, and Jerry beautifully took still pictures, and the whole staircase, it starts at the bottom and it goes up, that whole sequence. And you can see the orange in one of the pictures, a couple of the pictures, but clearly in one. So it's happened before that the team handed stuff out. Not saying this because actually this is the first time I'm hearing about it. So, but it has happened before. There's your history note for the night.
Coach, you should definitely go back and just watch the clips of that because it's just funny. Like just watching them, and the sideline reporter went over there to go talk to the fans and ask them what was going on. Like it was, that little moment right there is everything that I want the XFL to be.
I'll check that out.
Okay, so speaking of funny, let's go ahead and shut our show down with one funny question. Okay, you guys have been given the Houston Texans. They're yours to do whatever you want with them, but you can only change two things about them to try and make them successful. What are those two things going to be?
I'm going to name them the Oilers again.
Okay.
And I'm going to make them play one game in the Astrodome.
Okay.
Which is an asbestos black lung right now. It's only they haven't torn it down because it's full of asbestos. They can't afford to bring it down. So when you go to NRG Stadium, you're walking up the outside because that stadium's horrible, and you look over and there's the Astrodome.
Nice.
I don't know. Whatever.
What are you going to do?
But change their team name back to the Oilers. I think that'd be fun.
Nice.
I agree with that, man. I think they need to do whatever they got to do with Tennessee to get their name back.
Yeah,
just like what what the Charlotte did with the Hornets from New Orleans when.
Yeah, and the Browns. Well, the Browns never really gave up. Well, I guess the Browns did leave everything there when they went to Baltimore. So if the Browns can do it, why can't the Oilers do it?
Yep.
I mean, the Texans play like the Oilers. So
wow. You wait till their first pick this year.
Huh?
I said you wait till their first pick this year. They're getting a punter.
They probably would.
I thought you said the first quarter they're going to throw a pick.
The Texans are so bad that they went for 2 to get out of the number 1 spot.
Well, that was because Lovie Smith knew that was his last game. That was a shot at management. They fired him 4 hours later. He didn't even get to drink his Gatorade. They said, get out.
Yep.
Like Texas can't even move properly.
Yeah. I can't show any sympathy for Lovey. He's a bear. Sorry. It is what it is.
All
right.
All right, guys.
Folks, thank you so much for watching our inaugural episode. Next week, we are going to hit it hard and heavy, 6:30-ish, right? Because we're all working professionals. We all have lives. We have families to take care of. But we will come back to you next week. So make sure you tune in. Same bat time, same bat channel. And Texas football, right? Because we own the world.
That's right,
Thanks,
man.
guys. Take care.
Later, everyone.